Waitress helps elderly man on the street, and the next day he returns with a briefcase full of money. Amber never imagined that offering a plate of food would change her life forever. What began as a simple act of kindness would become the most shocking discovery of her existence. It was on a freezing January morning that she spotted the elderly man shivering on the sidewalk outside the cozy corner cafe, where she had worked for 3 years. His white hair and unkempt beard contrasted with his blue eyes, which seemed to carry decades of sorrow. "Are you okay?" Amber asked, stepping closer carefully. The man looked up, surprised. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to him kindly that he barely knew how to respond. "Just resting a bit, young lady," he murmured hoarsely. Amber noticed how he hugged his arms tightly, trying to keep warm. Without a second thought, she went inside the cafe and returned with the lunch she had brought from home: a plate of chicken and rice, a piece of bread, and a slice of chicken. "Would you like some? It's still warm." The old man stared at the food as if it were a miracle. His hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from emotion. "I can't take this, dear. You must be hungry too." "I'll eat later. Please, take it." He accepted the plate carefully, as if it were made of glass. As he ate, Amber took off the jacket she had brought for her evening shift and draped it over his shoulders. "Thank you," he whispered, a tear rolling down his cheek. "It's been so long since anyone did something like this for me." Amber smiled and went back to work, never imagining that this encounter would change everything. The next day, right at 8 in the morning, the same man appeared in front of the cafe. This time, he carried an old brown leather briefcase, worn with time. "Good morning, dear," he said, approaching Amber as she swept the sidewalk. "Good morning, how are you feeling today?" "Much better, thanks to you. That's why I'm here." He lifted the briefcase. "I want you to have this as thanks." Amber eyed the briefcase warily. "What is it?" "Open it and see." Curious, she unlatched the old clasps. Her eyes widened at the contents, hundreds of $100 bills, neatly stacked in bundles. "Sir, I can't take this. It was just a plate of food." "To me, it wasn't just a plate of food," he replied firmly. "It was so much more. But I didn't do anything special. Anyone would have done the same." The old man shook his head sadly. "You're mistaken. I walk these streets every day and no one has ever offered me so much as a glass of water. You were the only one." Dear listener, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Amber quickly closed the briefcase and handed it back. "I can't accept this. It must be important to you." "That's exactly why I want you to have it." Before she could protest further, the gruff voice of the manager called from the cafe door. "Amber, what are you doing out there? There are tables to clean." She quickly said goodbye to the man and hurried inside. Derek, the manager, watched her with irritation. "Who was that old man?" "Just someone who was hungry yesterday," Amber replied, trying to sound casual. "I hope you didn't give away free food again. You know that comes out of your paycheck." Amber's heart sank. Her waitress salary barely covered her mother's diabetes and high blood pressure medication. Every dollar counted at the end of the month. All morning, she couldn't stop thinking about the old man and the briefcase full of money. What was a seemingly homeless man doing with so much cash, and why did he want to give it all to her? The next day he returned, and the day after that. Always at the same time, always with the briefcase, always insisting that she accept it. "My name is Harold," he said on the 4th visit. "Harold Miller. And you?" Amber Wilson." "Pleasure to meet you, Amber. May I ask why you work so early? You don't look older than 25. 26, actually. I work to support my mother. She's sick and needs expensive medicine." Harold nodded understandingly. "And where do you live?" "Right here in the neighborhood, about 10 blocks away. Why do you ask?" "Just the curiosity of an old man who has no one left to talk to." The sincerity in his voice touched Amber. "Don't you have any family?" Harold's face closed off. "I did, but I lost everything and everyone." That afternoon, Mrs. Wilson, a customer who had frequented the cafe for years, pulled Amber aside. "Dear, do you know that man who's always outside?" "A little. Why?" "That's Harold Miller. He used to own 3 bakeries around here. Very well off, big family, respected by everyone." Amber felt curious. "What happened?" "They say he made bad investments, lost everything. His family drifted away when the money ran out. It's been about 2 years since anyone really knew where he was." This information left Amber even more confused. If he had lost everything, where did the money in the briefcase come from? The next morning, she decided to ask directly. "Mr. Harold, may I ask where the money in that briefcase comes from?" He looked her in the eyes for a long moment. "It's the savings of my entire life, Amber. All I have left." "But if you lost everything?" "I didn't lose everything. I kept this money hidden for emergencies. Now I want to use it to help those who've helped me." "Mr. Harold, you need this money much more than I do. Use it to get back on your feet, find a place to live, start over." His eyes shone with a mix of gratitude and frustration. "Oh, you don't understand, Amber. I'm too old to start over. But you're young with your whole life ahead. This money could make a difference for you." "It could, but it wouldn't be right for me to accept." "Why wouldn't it be right?" "Because I helped you because I wanted to, not expecting anything in return." Harold smiled for the first time since they'd met. "And that's exactly why you deserve it." The conversation was interrupted when Derek appeared at the door with a stern look. "Amber, I need to talk to you. Now." She stepped inside the cafe with a tight chest, sensing trouble. "Sit down," said Derek, pointing to a chair. "Several customers have complained about the homeless man at our door. It's driving business away." "He doesn't bother anyone, Derek. He just sits there." "I don't care. And I heard you gave him food without charging. That'll be deducted from your paycheck." "But it was my food. It was food you brought in here. This is a business, not a charity." Amber felt the injustice burn in her chest, but she needed the job. "Fine, it won't happen again. And one more thing. If that old man keeps showing up here, I'll have to take action. Consider this a warning." When she stepped outside, Harold was still there. She told him what had happened, watching sadness wash over his face. "Don't worry about me, Amber. I don't want to cause trouble for you." "You're not causing trouble. The problem is Derek." But deep down, she knew the situation was becoming untenable. That night, arriving home, Amber found her mother, Mrs. Collins, taking her medicine. "How was work today, dear?" "Same as usual, Mom. How are you feeling?" "Much better. These new medicines are working." Amber looked at the bottles on the table. Each one cost a fortune. Harold's money would solve all their financial problems, but she couldn't convince herself it was right to accept. "Mom, if you met someone on the street and gave them food, and then that person wanted to give you a lot of money as thanks, would you take it?" Mrs. Collins stopped organizing the medicine and looked at her daughter. "Depends. How much money?" "A lot. Enough to solve all our problems. Sweetheart, if God put this person in your path, maybe it's a sign you should accept. Or maybe it's a test to see if I'm greedy." "You? Greedy?" Mrs. Collins laughed. "Honey, you're the most generous person I know. If someone wants to give you money, it's because they see that in you." But Amber still hesitated. The next day, when she arrived at work, Harold was already there. This time, though, he wasn't alone. An elegant woman in her 40s was arguing loudly with him. "Dad, you're being ridiculous, giving money to some stranger." "Karen, she's not a stranger. She helped me when you and your siblings abandoned me." "We didn't abandon you. You're the one who pulled away when things got tough." Amber approached hesitantly. "Good morning, Mr. Harold." Karen turned to her with suspicion. "So you're the waitress who's been manipulating my father." "Manipulating?" Amber was startled. "I'm not manipulating anyone." "Of course you are, taking advantage of him when he's vulnerable." "Karen, stop this." Harold stood up, angry. "Amber's the only person who's been kind to me in years. Just showed up for his money, huh?" Karen looked at Amber with disdain. "What a coincidence. I never asked your father for money. In fact, I've refused it several times." "Oh, sure, playing hard to get for more." The argument was drawing attention from passers-by. Derek appeared at the cafe door with a scowl. "What's going on here?" "Nothing serious," Amber said quickly. "Just a conversation." "Conversation my foot," Karen shouted. "This woman is tricking my father to take his money." Derek looked from Amber to Harold, then at the briefcase on the ground. "What money?" Harold protectively picked up the briefcase. "That's no one's business. If it's happening at my establishment's doorstep, it is my business." Derek stepped closer. "Amber, what kind of mess are you mixed up in?" "I'm not mixed up in anything." "My father's being deceived," Karen insisted. "He wants to give her all the money in that briefcase." Derek's eyes gleamed with greed at that. "A briefcase full of money? What kind of money?" "Derek, please," Amber pleaded. "Let's handle this calmly." "Mr. Harold," Derek said, his tone suddenly syrupy. "You looking to invest? I can offer great opportunities." Harold looked at Derek with contempt. "I'm not interested in investments." "But you could multiply that money. I've got connections. I know people." "Derek, stop it," Amber said, embarrassed. "You shut up," Derek snapped. "Who do you think you are butting in?" The situation was spiraling out of control. Karen kept accusing Amber. Derek kept trying to convince Harold to invest with him, and people stopped to watch the spectacle. "Enough," Harold shouted. "Karen, you only showed up because you heard about the money. Where were you when I needed you?" "Dad, you didn't want our help." "Lies. I called all of you when I lost the bakeries. No one answered." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. And now that you know I have money, you're suddenly interested." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now continuing, Derek, seeing that Harold wasn't interested in his investments, changed his strategy. "Mr. Harold, if you really want to give that money to someone, I'm the manager of this establishment. I can provide official guarantees that the money will be put to good use." "Derek?" Amber looked at him, shocked. "What? You think only you can receive gifts?" Harold stared at Derek as if he were a disgusting insect. "Sir, I know men like you. You only think about your own pockets. And you think she's any different?" Derek pointed at Amber. "She's just pretending not to want it so she can get more." That accusation hurt Amber more than anything. "Mr. Harold," she said, her voice trembling, "I think it's best if you leave. I don't want any more trouble at work." "Amber, please go." Harold looked at her sadly, picked up his briefcase, and walked away. Karen followed him, still arguing. Derek went back into the cafe, muttering about missed opportunities. Amber stood alone on the sidewalk, feeling as if she had lost something important. The rest of the day dragged on. Amber served customers mechanically, unable to stop thinking about Harold. The way Derek had behaved left her ashamed, and Karen's accusations kept echoing in her mind. Was she really doing something wrong? When she got home that night, she told her mother everything. "You did the right thing, sweetheart," said Mrs. Collins. "You can't accept money in a situation like that, not with the man's family against it." "But I feel like I hurt him, Mom. He just wanted to repay the kindness." "Sometimes doing the right thing hurts, but it's better than regretting it later." That night, Amber struggled to sleep. She kept thinking about Harold's sad expression when she asked him to leave. The next day, she arrived at work hoping he wouldn't show up, but there he was in his usual spot, briefcase by his side. "Good morning, Amber." "Good morning, Mr. Harold. I didn't think you'd come back. I need to speak with you. It's important." Derek appeared at the door immediately. "Is that old man still here?" "Amber, I told you I don't want beggars in front of the cafe." "He's not a beggar," she snapped. "I don't care. Either he leaves or you do." Amber looked from Derek to Harold, feeling trapped. "Mr. Harold, maybe it's best if—" "No," he said, standing up. "I won't leave without saying what I came to say." "I'm calling security," Derek threatened. "Go ahead," Harold shot back firmly. "But first, she's going to hear me out." The determination in his voice stunned everyone. "Amber, I need to tell you something. Something I've carried for 30 years. A chill ran through her. "What is it?" "You have a scar on your right leg, don't you?" Amber froze. How did he know about that? The scar was small, barely noticeable, a result of a childhood accident. "How do you know that?" Because I caused that scar. The world seemed to stop around her. What? 30 years ago, I hit a 5-year-old girl who ran into the street chasing a ball. She survived, thank God, but was left with a scar on her leg. Amber's legs felt weak. That can't be. I never knew the girl's name. Her parents didn't want to press charges, just asked me to cover the hospital bills. But I could never forget. I've carried this guilt for 3 decades. This is impossible. When you told me your full name yesterday and mentioned where you lived, I checked my old records. I've kept all the documents from the accident. Amber Wilson, born in 1998, living on Blossom Street. It was you. Amber gripped a lamppost to steady herself. I don't remember any accident. You were too young, and you might have blocked out the traumatic memory. Derek and the few bystanders watched the scene, stunned. That's why I want to give you this money, Harold continued. It's the only way I found to try and make up for the harm I caused. I need to go home, Amber whispered. Amber, wait. But she was already running down the street, leaving everyone behind. She arrived home breathless and found her mother making lunch. Sweetheart, what happened? You're pale. Mom, I need to ask you something. When I was little, did I have some kind of accident? Mrs. Collins dropped the spoon and looked at her daughter in alarm. Why are you asking that? Answer me, Mom, please. Sweetheart. Mom. Mrs. Collins took a deep breath. When you were 5, you ran into the street chasing a ball and were hit by a car. Amber felt the ground crumble beneath her feet. Why did you never tell me? Because you were traumatized. The doctor said it was better not to bring it up. Over time you forgot, and we thought it was best to leave it that way. Who hit me? An older man. He paid for all the hospital bills, was very helpful, but we never heard from him again. What did he look like? Sweetheart, it's been 30 years. I don't remember well. He was an older man, had dark hair back then, wore a mustache. Amber remembered Harold's white hair and tried to picture him 30 years younger. Mum, was his name Harold? Harold Miller? Mrs. Collins's eyes widened. How do you know? Because I found him. Her mother fell silent for a few seconds, processing the information. Is he okay? How's his family? He's alone, Mom. He lost everything, and his family abandoned him. Oh my God, he was such a good man. He had a big bakery, a large family, and now he lives in a shelter. Mrs. Collins sat down, shaken. What a twist of fate. For you two to meet like this. He wants to give me money, Mom, as a way to make amends. And you don't want to accept it. I don't know what to do. It's all so confusing. Mrs. Collins took her daughter's hands. Sweetheart, what happened was an accident. Kids do things like that, run without looking. It wasn't his fault. But he's carried the guilt for 30 years. And maybe accepting the money is a way to free him from that guilt. Or maybe it's taking advantage of the situation. Amber, you're a good person. If you were selfish, you'd have taken the money the first day. They spent the afternoon talking about the past. Mrs. Collins shared details of the accident Amber had never known, how Harold had cried at the hospital, how he'd offered to pay for anything she needed, how genuinely remorseful he'd seemed. He was an honorable man, sweetheart. If he's offering this money, it's because he truly wants to do good. But Amber was still too confused to make a decision. The next day, she arrived at work determined to talk to Harold calmly, but he wasn't there. Derek, have you seen the older man who usually waits outside? That crazy old guy? No, and I hope he doesn't come back. Yesterday was embarrassing. Amber grew worried. Harold had never missed a day since they'd started meeting. All morning, she kept glancing at the street, hoping to see him arrive. But nothing. In the afternoon, Karen showed up at the cafe. She was alone and looked worn out. Are you Amber? I am. I need to talk to you. They sat at a table in the back of the cafe. My father's in the hospital, Karen said bluntly. Amber's heart raced. What happened? He had a high blood pressure crisis last night. He's at Mercy Hospital. Is he okay? Stable, but the doctors said it was emotional stress. He wouldn't stop talking about you. Guilt tightened Amber's chest. I didn't want this to happen. Last night, after he got back to the shelter, he called me. He apologized for how he spoke to me and told me about the accident you two had. So you know, I do. And I understand why he feels indebted to you. Karen took a deep breath before continuing. Amber, I need to apologize. Yesterday I was unfair to you. When I found out about the money, all I thought was that someone was taking advantage of it. You were protecting your father. It's only natural. No, it wasn't protection. It was plain greed. My siblings and I thought that money should have been ours. Karen's honesty surprised Amber. Why are you telling me this? Because last night, he reminded me of the man he always was, a good, generous man who always helped everyone, and we abandoned him when he needed us most. You're his family, you must have had your reasons. We didn't. We just didn't want to deal with his financial troubles. It was easier to pretend he didn't exist. Karen began to cry. And now he's alone in a hospital asking only to see you. He didn't want any of us called. Amber felt her chest tighten. Where did you say he is? Mercy Hospital, room 312. But are you really going? Yes, I am. An hour later, Amber walked into the hospital room where Harold was staying. He looked smaller in the white bed, hooked up to several machines. Amber, you came. How could I not? I heard you weren't feeling well. Just a little scare. I'm better now. She sat in the chair beside the bed. Mr. Harold, I'm so sorry about yesterday. I shouldn't have asked you to leave. You're not at fault. I'm the one who should apologize for bringing it up like that in front of everyone. I talked to my mother. She told me about the accident. Harold looked at her anxiously. And what did you think? That it really was an accident. Kids do things like that. But if I'd been more careful... Mr. Harold, you've carried that guilt for 30 years. Don't you think it's time to forgive yourself? His eyes filled with tears. Do you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive. But if it makes you feel better, then yes, I forgive you. Harold squeezed her hand tightly. Thank you, Amber. You don't know the weight you've lifted off my shoulders. And about the money. You don't have to accept it if you don't want to. I'm already happy with your forgiveness. Amber was silent for a moment, thinking. Mr. Harold, what if we made a deal? What kind of deal? You want to make up for the past and I need an opportunity to give my mother a better life. What if we pooled that money and started a business together? Harold's eyes lit up. Are you serious? Very serious. A small cafe, something simple. You know the business and I'm good with people. It could work. But I'm old, Amber. I might be more of a hindrance than a help. You're experienced. You know the trade. I'm the one who's new to this. Harold smiled for only the second time since they'd met. I think it's a wonderful idea. So it's settled? Settled. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. In the days that followed, as Harold recovered in the hospital, Amber began making plans. She quit her job at Cozy Corner Cafe, much to Derek's irritation, who even offered her a raise to stay. You'll regret leaving a steady job to take a risk with that crazy old man, he said on her last day. Maybe, but at least I'll try. By the time Harold was discharged, they had everything planned. They found a small commercial space a few blocks from Cozy Corner Cafe, on a busy street with cheaper rent. It's perfect, Amber said, looking at the empty space. Small, cozy, great location. And near the bus stop, Harold added. There'll be foot traffic all day. They invested the money from the briefcase into renovations, equipment, and decor. Harold still had contacts from his bakery days and got them good deals on everything. It'll be different from the other cafes, Amber said as they picked out tables. I want it to be a place where people feel at home, like you made me feel that day, said Harold warmly. Mrs. Collins was delighted with the project. Even after learning about the accident, she fully approved of the partnership. You two complement each other, she said. He has the experience, you have the energy. It's going to work out. Harold's daughter, Karen, also started taking a more active role in her father's life. His hospitalization had made her reflect on how selfish she'd been. "Dad, I want to help with the cafe too," she said during a visit. "You have your own job, sweetheart. But I can help on weekends or with the administrative side. I want to be part of your life again." Harold was moved. After so long, he was finally rebuilding his family. 3 months later, the Meeting Point Cafe was ready to open. The name had been Mrs. Collins's suggestion. "It was a meeting that changed everything," she explained. "The meeting of you two." The night before the opening, Amber and Harold did a final inspection. "Everything's perfect," she said, admiring the cozy space they'd created. "You know I'll have to tell everyone you're my business partner, right?" Harold teased. "And I'll have to put up with people asking why I teamed up with a stubborn old man," she shot back, laughing. "Stubborn I am, but thank you, Amber, for everything. Thank you, Mr. Harold, for not giving up on me." On opening day, the cafe was packed. People from all over the neighborhood came, curious about the new place. Derek showed up too, clearly annoyed by the success. "Congratulations," he said without enthusiasm. "Hope it works out." "It will work out," Amber replied confidently. During the celebration, she noticed something special. Several elderly neighbors had come and were chatting among themselves, looking livelier than usual. "Mr. Harold, do you see that?" She pointed to a group of ladies laughing freely. "I do. Seems they've found a place to feel at ease. I think our cafe will be more than just a place to have coffee." And she was right. In the weeks that followed, the Meeting Point Cafe became a gathering spot for many seniors in the area who had once been alone at home. They'd come in the morning for coffee and end up staying for hours to talk. "It's amazing," Amber remarked to Harold. "So many of them were lonely, just like you were." "Loneliness is a silent epidemic," he replied, "especially among the elderly. I'm glad we can do something to help." Over time, they began organizing special activities, game afternoons, poetry readings, storytelling circles about the old days. The cafe turned into a real community center. Mrs. Collins became a regular, and her health improved noticeably. Having a social routine and feeling useful by helping greet guests did wonders for her well-being. "Sweetheart, you have no idea how good I feel here," she told Amber. "It's like having a big family." Karen kept her promise and started helping on weekends. Little by little, she reconnected with her father and understood the kind of man he'd always been. "I didn't realize you made such a difference in people's lives," she told Harold one Saturday afternoon. "I'm just trying to give back a little of the kindness I've received." One day, 6 months after the opening, an elderly man Amber didn't recognize walked into the cafe. He looked clearly embarrassed and hesitant. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I heard this is a place where people like me are welcome." "People like you. People who are alone, who have nowhere to go." Amber's heart ached. She recognized that loneliness in his eyes. "Of course you're welcome. Sit here. I'll bring you a hot coffee." When she returned with the coffee, the man was looking around in awe. "It's such a welcoming place." "Thank you. What's your name?" "Mr. Stanley. Stanley Parker." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Stanley. I'm Amber." "Amber, the owner of the cafe?" "One of the owners." "I have a partner, Mr. Harold." She pointed to Harold, who was chatting with other customers. "Are you two family?" "No, we're friends. We met when he was going through a tough time, and I decided to help." Mr. Stanley smiled. "That's beautiful. You don't see people like that much anymore." "Oh, you do. You just have to look in the right places." From that day on, Mr. Stanley became a regular. They learned he had been widowed 2 years ago and that his children lived in other cities. Loneliness had been eating away at his will to live. "You saved my life," he told Amber a few weeks later. "I was thinking of giving up on everything." "You weren't alone. You just didn't know where to find company. But now I do, and I want to help others like me." And that's how Mr. Stanley became a kind of ambassador for the cafe, seeking out other lonely seniors in the neighborhood and bringing them in to see the place. Business grew so much that Amber and Harold had to hire an employee. They chose Rose, a 55-year-old woman who had been unemployed for months. "I don't have much experience with cafes," she said in the interview. "But do you have experience treating people well?" Amber asked. "That I do." "Then you're hired." Rose fit perfectly into the spirit of the cafe. She had a natural talent for making people feel special, remembering everyone's names and how they liked their coffee. A year after opening, the Meeting Point Cafe was thriving beyond expectations. But the most important thing wasn't the financial success. It was the impact on the community. "You know what I'm proudest of?" Harold said to Amber one quiet afternoon. "What?" "How many relationships started here? Mr. Stanley and Mrs. Amelia got married. Mrs. Rose found a boyfriend. The Domino Group became like family. And it all started because someone was hungry on the street," Amber reflected. "No, it all started because someone had compassion." That night, after closing the cafe, Amber and Harold sat down to have coffee together, as they had every day for the past year. "Mr. Harold, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you still feel guilty about the accident?" Harold thought for a moment. "Not anymore. I realized carrying guilt doesn't change the past, but it can ruin the future." "And how do you feel about the future?" "Hopeful. For the first time in years, hopeful." "I feel that way too." "Amber, you saved my life that day. Not just by giving me food, but by giving me purpose again. And you saved mine. You showed me that small gestures can have big consequences. I'm glad we learned that together." 2 years after opening, the Meeting Point Cafe had become a neighborhood landmark. Local newspapers ran stories about the social project they'd built. Others began opening similar businesses in different parts of the city. "We're becoming an example," remarked Karen, who now worked part-time at the cafe. "The example isn't us," Harold said. "The example is that everyone has something to offer, no matter their age or situation." On a special afternoon, they threw a party to celebrate their 2-year anniversary. All the regulars were there, along with some local officials who had learned about the project. The neighborhood mayor insisted on giving a speech. "The Meeting Point Cafe proves we don't need big government projects to change lives. Sometimes all it takes is one person caring about another." After the speech, they asked Amber to say a few words. "I'm not good with speeches," she began, a little nervous. "But I want to thank all of you for being part of our family." The audience applauded. "When I first met Mr. Harold, I thought I was just giving a plate of food to someone who was hungry. I never imagined I was planting a seed that would grow so much. We've learned that kindness is contagious. When you're kind to someone, that person becomes more likely to be kind to others. And that's how goodness spreads. We've also learned that everyone has a story. Everyone has suffered. Everyone has needed help. The difference is that some are lucky enough to find that help while others aren't. Our cafe is just a place where people can come when they need help, companionship, or a friendly ear. It's nothing revolutionary. It's just about treating people the way we'd like to be treated." Harold asked to speak as well. "I want to tell you all why this cafe means so much to me. 3 years ago, I was completely alone in the world. I had lost everything, my business, my family, my friends. I thought my life was over. But a young waitress showed me there was still kindness in the world. And more importantly, she showed me I still had something to contribute. Today, at 72, I can say I'm living the best years of my life. Not because I have money or success, but because I have purpose. This cafe has taught us that age isn't a limitation. Loneliness isn't destiny, and the past doesn't define the future. And that sometimes all a person needs is someone to believe in them." Everyone applauded, deeply moved. Many were crying, including Amber and Harold himself. After the celebration, as they cleaned the cafe, Mrs. Collins helped organize the tables. "Sweetheart, do you realize what you've accomplished? We accomplished? You've created a community, a place where people feel loved. It was Mr. Harold who came up with the money idea. But it was you who decided to use it for something greater." Amber looked around the cafe, seeing the photos on the wall of all the special moments they'd shared there. Weddings, birthdays, graduations, first communions. The cafe had been the setting for so many celebrations. "Mom, sometimes I still can't believe all this started with a plate of food." "It didn't start with a plate of food, dear. It started with love." "Love?" "Love for others. Compassion. The willingness to see someone as a human being who deserves dignity. I think you're right. I know I am, and that's what makes this place special. 3 years after opening, the Meeting Point Cafe had expanded, not physically, but in influence. Several other similar initiatives had sprung up around the city, inspired by their model. We're a network now, Harold joked. A network of kindness, Amber added. That year, they received a special invitation to attend a national conference on community social projects. They want us to tell our story, Amber said, reading the invitation. Our story isn't anything special, Harold replied. Maybe that's exactly why it is. They accepted the invitation and traveled to Washington, D.C. for the event. It was Amber's first trip out of state and Harold's first in many years. I'm nervous, he admitted on the plane. Me too, but we'll speak from the heart. It's the only way we know how. Their talk was a success. They shared the story of their meeting, the revelation about the accident, their decision to open the cafe together, and how a small business became a force for social change. The question we get asked the most, Amber told the audience, is whether we planned all this from the beginning. The answer is no, Harold continued. We just followed our hearts at every step. And we've learned that when you do the right thing for the right reasons, everything else falls into place. After the talk, many people approached them, eager to learn more about how to replicate the project. There's no magic formula, Amber explained. Just find a need in your community and try to fulfill it the best way you can. And do it with love, added Harold. Without love, it doesn't work. On their way home, they had several investment proposals, invitations to open branches, franchise offers. What do you think? Asked Harold. I think our cafe is special precisely because it's unique. If it became a commercial chain, it would lose its soul. I agree, let's keep it as it is. Small, cozy, special. As it should be. In the 4th year, something happened that moved everyone. Derek, the former manager of the Cozy Corner Cafe, showed up one morning at the Meeting Point Cafe. Amber, can I talk to you? She was surprised but greeted him politely. Of course, Derek. Have a seat. I wanted to apologize. Apologize? For the way I treated you when you worked with me. I was unfair, rude, greedy. Amber was taken aback by his sincerity. It's okay, Derek. It's in the past. No, it's not. I've been watching your success, and I realized what makes the difference isn't the place, it's the people. Thank you for saying that. Amber, would you be willing to give me a chance? A chance how? I've been unemployed for 6 months. The Cozy Corner Cafe closed because it lost all its customers to you. I'd like to work here if you'd have me. Amber looked at Harold, who had overheard the conversation. Derek, do you understand this isn't just a cafe, it's a social project? I do, and that's exactly why I want to be part of it. I want to learn to be a better person. Amber and Harold talked privately. What do you think? She asked. I think everyone deserves a second chance. Even after how he treated us. Especially because of that. If we don't believe people can change, how can we expect them to? They decided to give Derek a chance. He started as a cleaning assistant, but little by little, he adapted to the spirit of the place. It's hard to unlearn bad habits, he admitted to Amber a few weeks later. But you're trying. That's what matters. You know what impresses me most here? What? How you manage to make a profit while being kind. I always thought you had to be mean to succeed in business. Kindness can be good business too, Derek. Happy customers keep coming back. Derek became an exemplary employee, and over time, one of the project's biggest advocates. His transformation was so remarkable that it became an example for other local business owners. In the cafe's 5th year, Amber got a special surprise, a letter from a young woman living in another state. Dear Amber, my name is Jennifer, I'm 23 and live in Boston. I heard about your cafe's story through an online article, and I wanted to share how it changed my life. I was going through a very tough time, unemployed, hopeless, thinking the world was full of bad people. Reading about how you helped a stranger and how it turned into something so beautiful gave me hope again. I decided to leave my house and look for ways to help others too. I started visiting nursing homes, bringing kindness to abandoned elders. That's where I met Mr. Emmanuel, an 80-year-old man who hadn't had visitors in 2 years. Today, Mr. Emmanuel and I are great friends. He teaches me about life and I bring joy to his days. I've also convinced other young people to join the project, and now we have a group of 15 visiting different nursing homes in the city. All of this started because I read about you. Thank you for showing me there's still kindness in the world, and that small actions can have big results. With love, Jennifer. Amber read the letter to Harold with tears in her eyes. You see, our story is inspiring people even in other states. That's amazing, he replied, equally moved. Do you know what this means? Kindness really is contagious, and that we don't need to be physically close to someone to positively influence their life. They decided to respond to the letter and began regularly exchanging correspondence with Jennifer. Through her, they met other young people who were developing similar projects across the country. We're creating a national kindness network, said Harold, amazed. Who would have thought a plate of chicken and rice would go so far? Laughed Amber. By the 6th year, the Meeting Point Cafe had become an institution in town. The mayor officially declared the establishment a municipal social heritage and created a city program based on their model. You've become public policy, joked Karen. Let's hope it keeps working once it's public policy, replied Harold skeptically. It will work if the right people are involved, said Amber. That same year, something very special happened. Mr. Stanley, the first lonely elderly man they had welcomed, decided to write a book about his experience. I want others to know loneliness has a cure, he said. And what's the cure? Asked Amber. Community. Having a place where you belong, where you're expected, where you make a difference. Mr. Stanley's book became a local bestseller and brought even more attention to the work they were doing at the cafe. We're getting famous, observed Mrs. Collins. Famous, but we're still the same, replied Amber. And it has to stay that way. In the 7th year, Amber made an important decision. She decided to marry Michael, a teacher she had met at the cafe who had become a regular. He understands our mission, she explained to Harold. He wants to be part of the project. I'm happy for you, my dear, said Harold. You deserve all the happiness in the world. You're not getting rid of me. We'll keep running the cafe together. Forever? Forever. The wedding was held at the cafe itself, with all the regulars in attendance. It was a simple celebration, but full of love and joy. I've never seen such a beautiful wedding, commented Rose. That's because it was made with real love, replied Mrs. Collins. Michael fit perfectly into the project. As a teacher, he began organizing literacy classes for adults at the cafe, adding another social dimension to the establishment. Now we're a school too, laughed Amber. School of life, added Harold. By the 8th year, it was time for a tough decision. Harold, now nearly 80, began feeling the weight of age. Amber, I need to talk to you. Go ahead, Mr. Harold. I'm thinking about retiring. Amber's heart tightened. Are you not happy anymore? I'm very happy, but I feel I've done my part. Now it's time for you younger folks to take over completely. But the cafe wouldn't be the same without you. Yes, it would, because the spirit of the cafe isn't just in me, it's in all of us. Where will you live? Karen invited me to live with her. I'm thinking of accepting. That would be good for both of you. Amber, you gave me a new life. Now I want you to live yours without worrying about me. I'll always worry about you. We're family now. We sure are. And family isn't abandoned. We just make room to grow. Harold's retirement was more of a celebration than a goodbye. He would still visit the cafe daily, but now as a special guest, not as the person in charge. I'll have more time for dominoes, he joked. And for unsolicited advice, Amber teased. That's my specialty. Amber took full management of the cafe, with Michael as her partner and Rose as the manager. The project kept growing and evolving. In the 9th year, they launched a special program, Adopt an Elder. The idea was to connect young people in the community with lonely seniors, creating alternative family bonds. It's like we're creating chosen families, explained Michael, which is exactly what we need to do, agreed Amber. The program was a success and was replicated in many other cities. By the 10th year, it was time for the big celebration. A decade of the Meeting Point Cafe deserved a special party. 10 years already, said Harold, amazed. Feels like just yesterday we met. It was yesterday, Amber replied. The best moments in life fly by. The 10th anniversary celebration lasted a whole week, with special events every day. People came from all over the country to join the festivities. On the final day, Amber gave a heartfelt speech. 10 years ago, an elderly man showed up at the door of the cafe where I worked, shivering from the cold and hungry. I offered him my lunch, never imagining I was planting the seed of all this. Today I look around and see hundreds of people who met here, who formed friendships here, who found purpose here. I see seniors who escaped loneliness, young people who discovered the joy of serving, families reunited after years apart. But most importantly, I see that kindness truly is contagious. Every person who passed through here carried a bit of that positive energy wherever they went, multiplying good deeds across the world. I've learned that we don't need to be special to make a difference. We just need to be willing to see others as human beings who deserve love and respect. I've learned that small gestures can have big consequences. A plate of food turned into all of this. I've learned that it's never too late to start over, to make amends, to build a better future. And I've learned that when we do good without expecting anything in return, life gives us back far more than we deserve. The audience rose in a long standing ovation. Many were moved to tears. Harold asked to speak as well. When I met Amber, I was at rock bottom. I'd lost everything and thought my life had no meaning left. I'd carried guilt for 30 years that was eating me alive. This young woman showed me that the past doesn't define who we are today, that it's possible to redeem yourself, to forgive yourself, to start fresh. More than that, she showed me that everyone has something to offer, no matter their age or situation. I thought I was a burden, but I discovered I still had important contributions to make. Today at 82, I can say I've truly lived. Not just existed, but lived. I had purpose. I made a difference. I built deep relationships. And it all started because a waitress with a generous heart decided to share her lunch with a stranger. This cafe is proof that kindness exists, that people are fundamentally good, that small actions can change the world. Thank you, Amber, for saving me. Thank you, all of you, for being part of this wonderful family we've built together. And remember, every one of you has the power to be the start of a beautiful story in someone's life. You just have to be willing to reach out. The applause was deafening. There wasn't a single person in the room who wasn't moved. After the party, when everyone had gone, Amber and Harold sat alone in the cafe, just as they had 10 years before. We did it, didn't we, Mr. Harold? Did what? Proved that kindness is worth it. I always knew it was. I just needed someone to remind me. And you taught me it's never too late to start over. You taught me it's never too early to make a difference. They sat in silence for a few minutes, taking in the magnitude of what they'd built together. Mr. Harold, do you have any regrets? Just one. What? That it took me 30 years to forgive myself. I could have lived so much more if I hadn't carried that guilt for so long. And I regret doubting at first whether I was doing the right thing. You've always done the right thing, Amber. From day one. We did the right thing. Together. Together. Amber looked around the cafe, seeing the walls covered in photos, certificates, thank you letters, children's drawings, newspaper clippings. Each object told a story, represented a life touched. You know what makes me proudest about our story, she said. What? That it's still being written every day. Every person who walks in here for the first time, every new friendship that begins, every problem we solve together. Our story has no end. No, it doesn't, because kindness has no end. They stood up to leave, but before stepping out, Harold stopped at the door and looked back one last time. Thank you, Meeting Point Cafe, for giving me a reason to live. Thank you too, Mr. Harold, whispered Amber, for teaching me that small gestures can change the world. And so, two lives crossed paths on a cold morning, changing not only their own destinies, but touching hundreds of other lives along the way, proving that kindness is a powerful force, capable of turning pain into hope, loneliness into community, and guilt into redemption. Meeting Point Cafe would keep running for many years, always true to its original mission, to be a place where people connect, where kindness is the common currency, and where everyone is welcome. Because in the end, everyone needs a place to belong, and sometimes all we need is someone willing to share their lunch with us. End of story. Now tell us, what did you think of this story of overcoming and transformation? Have you ever experienced a similar situation where a small gesture made all the difference? Leave your comment and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one.